And we're using a little different technology tonight. And so we got to do things a little bit differently. But good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to ADRAMADA, another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything Digital Alchemy. I am the aforementioned Dave Rush. And it must be Thursday because we get together every Thursday for an hour to talk about tech, because I love tech. I love to research it. I love to try it. And this show is devoted to disseminating information about the use of technology. And in particular, we are always interested in how the advancement of technology impacts our daily and long-term lives. And man, is our show on point for that today. It is Thursday, December 7th, a day that will live in infamy. We mark this date in the United States. And I won't get into that one today, but topics are wide-ranging. We celebrate technology, everything from electric cars to electric guitars and music and movies and the synergy of energy and booting to computing and Linux to ethics, the chase to space, cyber to fiber, security to electricity, and Raspberry Pi to Li-Fi to AI. And we're not afraid to delve into social topics, including religion, sex, politics, and COVID, though I really think we got to pull that one off the list. Nobody talks about COVID anymore, and thank goodness. No Shave November is gone, so I've been shaving every day, but it's its own act of war. Wait, what? Oh
Hey,
my
Dave.
gosh,
Hey, Dave, what are you doing?
Scott Jernigan, what
Hey,
are
man.
you doing here?
I saw the link on your. You really should change your Zoom password.
Ah,
I've got the link, so I figured
I knew when I set
I'd
up
click in,
Zoom.
and I saw the live Zoom.
I knew when I set up Zoom, experimenting for the last day or two, somebody who has my password that I've never changed is gonna link in. Well,
There you
what a
go.
nice thing. Great to see you, sir.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Dave.
I was expecting to see you, just not this early. So what a pleasure.
Well, there you go. I can go away if you really need me to.
I love the set.
Thank you. I enjoy yours too. Somewhere between Enterprise and Christmas, so it's all good.
And all points in between. We got Lost
Right.
in Space, and yeah, in the new year we'll revamp the set. This one's had about a year's worth of life, but well, that is so cool. Is there anybody here? Is it just us? That's probably
It
the
might
case.
just be us.
Let me see. Oh, well, there'll be more. Enjoy this on the archive. I know some of our regulars had to step out today. It's the Christmas holidays in the U.S. and people are attending Christmas parties and things like that. Holy Hannah Tullowit just checked in. I'm just finishing my lunch, heading home soon. I can see, but have the volume off. Okay, we'll wave. Give Tullowit a wave.
Okay, so when you're headed home, Telewit, you should turn the video off and leave the sound on. You see, because that way you're not totally distracted while driving. Just,
You're gonna have to sign him to let him know that.
That's true. That's true. Maybe he can read lips.
And someone who we haven't seen here in ages. He got the word that you're here, I guess.
Hey, Zach,
Zach
how are you?
Morrill is in.
Yeah, good to see you. Well, good to see your words, at least on the screen.
Read what's gonna hit hard when you stream at 7 p.m. your time. Yeah, considering where you are, you're usually asleep. Well, so glad you stayed awake. Yeah, because we're back on standard time here, which means it's 1 o'clock in the morning, Zach Morrill time.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's dedication. Way to go. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I know you've got a lot of stuff to talk about here, so I'm going to just kind of zip by some of this usual front end, and then we'll dive right in. And yeah, I was about to say, look, my next paragraph. This is a super special show because it's the first time that ADRAMADA welcomes a guest, the inimitable Scott Jernigan.
Inimitable.
You're joining us today to talk about what, Scott?
I'm here to talk about the G's and you. In other words, how you interact with cellular networks and Wi-Fi and the interchange in between the two, and what's going to work in real world applications.
Oh, loving that.
So there you go.
That's going to be cool. So the G, Grandmaster Scott.
The G.
I had so many accolades here in my pair. I'm not going to let them go here. Here to talk about real world. Okay. Scott is a noted author, actor, musician, medieval warrior. Though in an earlier conversation, I found out that he's not fighting as much these days. Wears many other hats. We're going to ask about some of those hats later on today. I did something, Scott, in preparation for the show. I went back through all of the AMAs and dramas to find when the last time you made an AMA appearance.
Wow.
It was January 19th of 22. You and I were substitute hosting on someone else's show.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a while. Welcome back to the air.
Wow. I didn't realize I'd been gone almost 2 years?
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
No, just a year, right? January 22.
Right. Now, I know you've done other things with other groups. You conduct classes or music classes and things like that online.
I've done music online and had lots of course, Zoom conversation throughout, on various business subjects with many people over the past year. But as far as getting up and being on stage like this, not since last January or January 22. Yeah.
We are honored that you joined this show to break your silence.
Thank you for inviting me.
And so to everyone then, a happy Eep, Op, Orc, Ah. And I'm not going to do slides today. I can do them, but it's just kind of a pain with Zoom. It's so much more fun with OBS. I had this brilliant idea on how I was going to do Zoom and OBS, and it was brilliant, except only one can grab the video camera at the same time. And OBS always takes priority. I thought, okay, well, I got 4 video cameras here staring at me. I thought I'll just go plug in another one. Nah, too much trouble.
Nice.
So what do we got here? So let's do just a couple quickie little bits of news. I think I got about 5 items of tech news. Are you interested? Are you excited about Raspberry Pi 5, Scott? Do you care? Have you followed it?
Talk to me about it. Tell me about the Raspberry Pi 5, Dave, and why should I be excited about it? How's that for an opening softball?
Well, we've done we've done tech shows on it, and not much because I don't have one in hand yet. And that's the real news. Our Pi 5 runs every bit twice as fast as our Pi 4.
Wow. Okay.
That's its big claim to fame. There's got lots of course, other smaller pieces. And one of the really great things about it is that it has a PCIe lane that's available to users through the IO ports, but they've also done 4 onboard PCIe lanes for 5 of their communications devices, the Ethernet, the wireless, the Wi-Fi, the cameras. 2 of them are fairly low performance, and so 1 lane is more than sufficient. So not only is the processor super fast and there's tons of cache RAM and all of that other good stuff, all of the single controlled chip devices that had to share bandwidth, that's gone.
That's exciting. Performance, that's going to be an astonishing jump.
Cannot wait. And that's so weekly for the last 5 weeks. I've been doing an update on my orders. I've ordered 3 of them.
That's right. And you were talking about this in last week's show, right? Where you ordered it first in line kind of thing, and other people who order from a different vendor, they've already gotten theirs, and yours is
I think that's part of it, but I also think it's kind of one at a time. So those of us who were foolish enough to order 3 or 4 or 10 or 60. Hey, I saw a LinkedIn post today. If you like Raspberry Pi and you don't need our Pi 5, there's a guy who just posted a box full of our Pi 4 8 gig models that he's selling for $65 a piece, which is just outstanding. If I didn't have 4 here in boxes.
I won't tell the missus. You can just get
Yeah, I was going to say, and then that comes into play given that I haven't lined up new employment yet. Everybody here knows that I am no longer a total seminarian.
total Semonite. Come on.
Semonite. I like your word. I've been doing a totalitarianism, but
Well, no comment.
anyway, so status on my order is basically no change since last week. The coolers shipped. The power supplies shipped. The coolers are in, but I've asked them to save me some shipping. I don't need a pile of coolers sitting around here that I paid shipping for.
Right.
Until I get pies in, and they're still showing no stocks. Oh, all right. I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring up a slide because you guys have to see this. Okay, I can do that. Let's do this. That's what I get for lack of preparedness. Okay, there it is. Now, share screen. Zoom. This is a little
You can do it.
toy that I found. It's not a toy. It's real. In my meanderings this week. Can you see that, Scott?
Absolutely. A big chunk of DDR4.
It's not a big, okay, it is.
It's a module that goes into a DDR4 slot that you can add SODIMMs to.
Right. So it'll take what are you doing with that pile of DDR4 SODIMMs that you don't need for your laptop anymore because you've upgraded? Hey, you can put that in your desktop that takes DDR4 with this $8 adapter. So I just think that's beyond super cool.
That's amazing. That's great.
I really love that. And as long as I got slides up, I'm going to finish this thing out on slides. So we will continue on here. It's been over 20 years since Europeans have started generating power with offshore wind power. This week, the first U.S. offshore turbine went online to generate commercial power. It's beyond the testing phase. They're actually running power. It's 11 megawatts. It's in a wind farm about 30 or so miles off of Long Island in New York. It's 800 feet tall. Oh, wow. And a nice typo here. They have a dozen up. Second one is in testing and should be online quickly. And they say all dozen up by early 24. And so that, they always put the stat out. I've talked about this before, but this one really cuts close to home because I think I got a cool alternative now. This will generate enough household to provide energy for X amount of households. That stat is so meaningless to me. I see Jason Helms has popped in. Wonderful. So I tried to think of something that was truly meaningful, and I came up with it. Don't tell me how many houses it'll power. Tell me how many Raspberry Pi 5s it will power. And so the total output of this thing when it's all totally functional, 130 megawatts. And by my calculation, that runs 10.8 million Raspberry Pi 5s.
That's that's an amazing
amazingly pointless stat, huh?
Right. I wasn't going to say pointless so much as unique. That's my diplomatic word.
And if anybody wants to do the math, they're 12 watts a piece, so easy enough to figure out. All right. I was on LinkedIn the other day, and SentinelOne, who is a security services for corporations, they come in and they help you set up your security solutions for cloud and identity and all of that good stuff. They made for their customers some custom Lego little office things. I have no interest in Legos, but they said, look, anybody who reposts this is in a raffle for one of these in the leftovers. And I thought, well, okay, that guy looks like I kind of used to before the gray crept in. So I'll repost it. And I do like SentinelOne, so much the better. And 2 days ago, I got a message. Hey, congratulations, you're one of the raffle winners. So I have a Lego and I will be putting it up on the set when it comes in.
Okay, that goes really well with your t-shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
That's
I
awesome.
I got a Talk Nerdy to Me shirt from Radio Shack just before they went out of business. It's black with red text. And the missus and I were out and about and we saw this thing. Oh, I needed a legend. Look at that. It's another one. Other tech in the news. I think this is the last of my news stuff. Yeah. So Kali Linux, who comes up with a new release every year, sometimes twice a year, brand spanking new release for the Pi 5. So they just released 2023.3. Bam, a couple weeks later, here comes 2023.4 Kali Linux for the Raspberry Pi 5, which is good. It takes advantage of all those speeds and all those new communications links. And that's awesome. It's the second thing that I'm going to do when my first Pi 5 comes in. The first thing I'm going to do is run all of the programs that we run in the past that said, hey, look, they work, but they suck because they're slow.
Right.
And I'm thinking in particular of Kdenlive, the video editor. That's going to be first on the list. But after I get through 3 or 4 of those really slow programs, on goes Kali onto the 5.
That sounds very cool.
Yeah. And you can download the image from, by the way, you can't, the image it's downloadable from their site or from the new Raspberry Pi imager. You got to get the latest and greatest Raspberry Pi imager, excuse me, hiccups. It's not going to run on a 4, right? Because it's a whole new processor in the 5. So there's still Kali Linux for Raspberry Pi 4 running it on the Bullseye distro. But yeah, I'm excited. All right, that's it for the news. Stop share.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So who popped in?
Yeah. Jason and Zach seem to be chatting amongst themselves.
Yeah. And you guys should be doing that over on the Bat Cave or the ADRAMADA server, because you're both mods over there. And both
but then they wouldn't have
Zach,
the advantage of being able to communicate directly with you right now, where you can respond to them in real time, Dave.
That's true. That's truly true. Okay.
And they can see your facial expression when you're like, what? Did you really say that?
Zach is literally just working and then sleeping and not doing much. All this Pi talk, making me a sweet tooth.
Nice.
Scott, I don't know if you knew this. Everybody on here knows. We got a message from Jason about a week ago. He'd been silent for a day or so, and someone was okay. Guy works a lot. He's changing positions.
Sure.
No, he texted us or Discorded us from his hospital bed. So he was in there for a few days and now back in the pink and doing his thing.
Yeah.
But scary times, because at like 2 days into it, he went totally radio silent for a full day. And, all of us were praying for him and we were communicating with each other. What do you think there? Should we pester him? Should we call his mom? What? And somebody, I think Patricia Grace posted something about, hey, you there? And he responded that he was just wiped out. Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. he says he now has no filters on right now. So that's okay. I'm a moderator, Jason. Go unfiltered. I'll delete if necessary. You should wait until I'm actually doing all the talking and then throw a bunch of stuff in, because I won't be looking at the live chat.
That's the way to do it. So Zach hasn't been around long.
That's because it's 1 o'clock in the morning your time, Zach. That's why you haven't been around. If we were still doing like a noon show, Houston time, then it'd be easy, because it'd be like, oh, it's time to go hit the pub and here's my laptop and I can have a pint while watching Dave and Scott.
And I'm thinking kind of doing that. I'm thinking about doing a twice a week show, a half an hour short show in daylight hours, and then this format in evening hours. So we'll see if time permits. I'm going to let you take that message at 7:19 from Zach. And so I'm not sure if he's talking to you or me or both. Hang on, let me put my specs on.
Ah, okay. Sorry. Yeah, it was I can read the stuff that like Jason's saying, be gentle. That I can translate, but when it's a whole bunch of words all jumbled together, then the glasses have to go on.
Got
So no, I can't talk about anything. That's the short answer.
And I am no longer with Total Seminars, and I am not forbidden to talk about anything. There was paperwork that forbade me, but I didn't sign it. So, but long and short is, it's owned by a big company right now. They're changing focuses and changing budgets around, and they don't need some of us anymore. So, ain't with them. So,
Yes.
if any work, any janitorial work, what do they call?
So Zach says that he hasn't been on a total show for 2 years. So it's been a while for him as well.
Yeah.
So, Total and I parted company, I guess, a couple of years ago at this point.
Yeah, I think it was May. Maybe I don't know.
No, it was
Whatever
like it was somewhere early 2022.
Well, so the last time you and I did a show together, like I said, was what, January of 22, and you weren't on after that, so it wouldn't have been long after that.
That'd be the right timetable. So anyway, life has changed and life goes on, and we are rolling up to, I don't know if you can see the glowing things behind me. All that is the light from all of my insane holiday decorations. We have our big holiday celebration comes up in my neighborhood called Lights in the Heights. I live in like just off downtown Houston, Texas, and it's called the Heights because it's, you ready? 18 feet above sea level. That's what? Fewer than 6 meters above sea level. Yeah, that's the Heights. The rest of Houston is lower. So Lights in the Heights is on Saturday. We close off the streets and 1 million people descend on my neighborhood, and it's on my street this year. So we went all out, and I will share pictures. So not
totally looking forward to
soon.
that. If you have not seen pictures of Scott's efforts in the past, he's got them, and he'll probably post something like his. I was going to say StubHub, not Imager. What do you use for posting online your pictures?
I'll either use Facebook, right,
okay,
or I'll post on SmugMug.
SmugMug, that's the one I was trying to think of. Here's the deal. This is really easy. If you've ever seen the Chevy Chase movie Christmas Vacation, when they plug the lights in and they work and it blinds the people on the International Space Station, that's Scott's house.
That's my house. Yeah, it got so bad a few years back because we kept blowing circuits and stuff that I had 2 dedicated electrical circuits run from my panel to the front and the side of the house just for Lights in the Heights.
And Halloween.
That's true. That's true. Halloween too. And no, I don't have a problem. Okay. Stop looking at me that way.
He works so hard on this stuff. We would have projects at work and he never let a project drop. But wait a minute, I can't work on the project during daylight hours because I can't set up Lights in the Heights in the dark.
That's right.
So I'm going home to work on Christmas, and then I'll work all night on project.
That's exactly that. That was the pattern. Absolutely. So this week I actually have off and had nothing to do aside from just prepping for Lights in the Heights. So I got to spend plenty of time working during the day, and there's a new World of Warcraft classic iteration that just showed up a couple of days before this week. So been on that too, because,
Oh, you're doing WoW Classic? I never noticed.
Right? Yes.
I got online this morning. I got up early to do some work on another project, and I flip into Discord, and there's Scott shows up on the Discord channels as playing WoW Classic. All right, a couple more slides for the personal rant stuff this week, and then we'll get on to the reason that we're truly all here.
Okay.
Share screens, go back to the slide viewer. That looks like a slide viewer. Can I do this? Sure. So at the company that I used to work for, they had a company standard for office productivity stuff, Office 365. And so everybody was issued an Office 365 account, and you got to use all the apps from that. And then when they left a couple of us behind, they killed our accounts. And I noticed that because every time I would bring up Word or whatever, it comes up with, it says Word has been deactivated. You should reactivate it. But it continued to work, so I didn't think much of it. And then 31 days after the big date, I opened up a document to edit it, or in fact, I wanted to copy and paste something out of it, and it wouldn't let me. And I did some research, and you know what? After 30 days, if you don't have an account, the only thing you can do with these apps is view stuff. So then I have two choices. I could go subscribe to my own personal Office 365 account, or LibreOffice. So I've been running LibreOffice for 2 weeks now. Good stuff. Not perfect, but Office 365 isn't perfect either. So it's a very good alternative. I'm showing the pie screen. There. That's all it was. I didn't have a real big deal here. Installation wizard was completed. So, of course, I've always run all of this stuff, all LibreOffice, on my Linux boxes. So this is the first time that I've installed them on my own personal Windows boxes. So there you go. Sunday night. Do I have a slide for this? Yes, I do. Sunday night, I was a good boy. I said, you know what? I haven't backed up my system in a very long time. I'm going to back it up. Whole
good.
Image backup.
Nothing good.
And before I do, I'm going to give it a cleanup. And I use my good old standby sea cleaner. It was 1:30 in the morning. I missed a couple of important check marks, and that cost me dearly. I thought I did a slide. Yeah, there it is. So up here, there was fittings for Microsoft Edge. I don't use Microsoft Edge, so I didn't look at any of those check marks. Same thing for Edge Chromium, and same thing for Internet Explorer. So I just hit the go clean button. Well, I lost every file and most of the folders in my downloads directory, and I keep thousands of things there. And so I went back to learn what happened, and oh yeah, okay, well, the downloads directory, default downloads directory for Microsoft Edge and for Chromium and for Internet Explorer is also the same one for Brave. And so since I didn't uncheck any of these, it wiped out my drush/downloads folder. It will take me years to recover, and some of it I will never recover. So never let a good crisis go to waste. Learn something. So things, by the way, when I got done with this, I did back up after that. So next time I won't lose as much, but lessons learned. Don't do anything risky without a backup first. Don't do anything risky unless your head is clear and you fully review the procedure you're about to perform. So that was my downfall. Takeaway summary, RTFM. No picture. Yes, I do have a picture for this last piece of personal. This was so cool. Watching the news last night at 6:06 p.m. local time. And the newscaster said at 7 minutes, 6:19, whatever it was, the ISS is going to enter our view on the northwestern horizon, about 10 degrees above the horizon, and then it's going to pass directly overhead and then go to the southeast horizon, and the whole pass will take 7 minutes. So, well, I don't need to watch the news for the next 14, 20 minutes. So I went out front. There was some neighbor out front with their kids. Hey, you want to watch something really cool here? Because the weather was great. The lighting was awesome. And all the neighbors started gathering around, and we saw it appear. The sun was just down, that it wasn't shining on Houston, but the ISS was high enough to have the sunlight fully on it. And so it was like a dim star on the horizon. And then it climbed. You could watch it moving fast. And by the time it was overhead, I can't even begin to describe how, like, the brightest planet in the sky times 10.
Wow.
And then we watched it fade over the horizon. And that happens like 2 or 3 times a year for any given area of the world. And every time I even get a notification, conditions aren't right. The clouds are out, or it's midday or whatever. So last night was the first time I truly got to watch a full pass, and I'm still giddy about it.
That's awesome.
I would have called you.
And you should have. I was awake.
Next time.
Playing WoW. So there you go.
I believe that. All right. Well, that's it for our first half. And right on time to start what we usually do in the second half of the show, the project of the week. And our project this week is turning it over to Scott, who has some experiences and some research that he's going to share with us about real world usage and some comparisons of using Wi-Fi on the road and using cellular data. So take it away, Scott. I'll interrupt as I feel fit.
Okay, sounds great, Dave. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for inviting me to your show.
Oh, every time.
Talk about the G's in you. What happened? I went to a conference a few weeks ago in San Diego, and was reminded again about how it's the second most perfect environment in all of the United States, only after Hawaii. You're welcome to tell it. But San Diego was just absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. The weather was perfection, and all of that was great. I stayed in 2 different hotels. One, a big fancy Hyatt that's, very modern and all the amenities built from the ground up. And the other, a very old hotel that is a historical hotel with thick walls and thick windows and weird kind of, it's not something any designer would make in the 21st century, and probably not even the 20th century. So very different experiences. And so what I found was that I had Wi-Fi is ubiquitous in hotels these days. And I could connect my laptop or my phone or whatever to the Wi-Fi and get on the internet. But the experiences of getting from my laptop to the hotel Wi-Fi became challenging once I moved from the new hotel to the old hotel. And downstairs, for example, in the main common room where we were meeting for meetings and stuff, the Wi-Fi was nice and strong. But on the 4th floor, where I was at the top of the hotel, and I could show how old the hotel is, right? On the 4th floor, the Wi-Fi was almost non-existent. So what do you do? That's the genesis of this conversation tonight. What do you want to do, or what do you want to accomplish? What does anyone want to accomplish when they're connecting to the internet? If you're Mike Myers, and we all remember this, he would have said Google. Absolutely. And just going to Google, it really doesn't matter what kind of connection you have. You can get there. It might take a little longer if you're doing a complicated search, but just doing a search on something that is visually not that intensive like Google, no problem. But what do we really want to do when we're in a hotel room or we're stuck somewhere at an internet cafe or something like that? We want to watch movies, right? We want to be able to download videos. We want to stream music. We want to have that playing in our headphones coming off the internet while we're typing away and doing our presentation for the next day or whatever.
Playing,
or
wow.
Conversely, Nobody plays WoW at an internet cafe, Dave. Really, trust me, I've never done that before. No, my fingers are crossed. You can't see them, but you know.
Oh, Jason
Uh,
Helms dialed right in on. Yep, stream videos.
Stream videos, right? Of course, stream videos. And if you're Dave Rush, you might want to go on location and live stream. So here I am at Antidote Cafe in Central Houston, Texas, and I'm live streaming my show because I'm doing a 30-minute morning show on a Sunday morning or whatever, a Friday morning. And there I am upstream, right? So very different ideas and possibilities on what you can do and what you want to do. So here's where it gets a little bit tricky from a consumer standpoint. Where does the line between the cellular connection to the internet cross the Wi-Fi connection to the internet? On my phone, wherever the show and tell, on my phone, I can connect, as can everybody with a smartphone. I can connect to the internet via the cellular network, or if I'm around Wi-Fi, I can enable Wi-Fi and connect via Wi-Fi. What's better? Right? That's the real question. What's better? And how do you decipher when, how do you decipher when the marketing people get involved and when you're looking at the cellular standards and suddenly somebody says it's 4G, you know, well, what does that mean? It's 5. Oh, I have 5G. The other day I saw an advertisement. I think it was from a company, we'll just leave it there, who said, oh, we will go better than 4G or 5G. We have 10G. To which I responded, what? 10G? When did that standard come up? It didn't.
Yeah.
Short. It purely marketing gobbledygook. That's my official word for BS, by the way. Gobbledygook. There is no 10G. So there's 5G, which is a current kind of high-end standard, and 4G, which is still very much the common denominator of cellular networking throughout the world. So then when you get into Wi-Fi standards, the naming conventions get even worse because you have the official IEEE nomenclature like 802.11ac versus 802.11ax. But the marketing people have decided to rebrand all that stuff a few years ago, and now they call it Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 4, and there's a word for it. Somebody will remind me of it, where you take a technology and you rename it after the fact. So there's now a Wi-Fi 1, 2, and 3 that, of course, were never called 1, 2, and 3 until after they renamed 802.11n Wi-Fi 4. So it's not backdated. It's
retro gobbledygook.
No, Tulowit, give me the word.
Tulowit will know if anybody does.
Back.
Yeah, Tulowit points out correctly. They did that with USB.
That's right. That's right. They did that. Everything turned to USB 2, even though it was still USB 1.1.
Yep.
Same thing, same idea. So what I thought I'd do here is first just kind of let's look at backronym. Thank you, Tulowit. A backronym. So Wi-Fi 1, 2, and 3, and even 4 for that matter, have been stick with backronym.
I never heard of the term backronym, but it's in my lexicon forever now.
It is. It is. I thought what I'd do is kind of glance at the cellular standards that are out there. And so we can kind of compare and contrast 4G and 5G networks. So let me share my screen. We can look at that, and then we'll turn to the various Wi-Fi networking standards and compare those as well. I won't spend a lot of time, and just let's make this very clear. None of the stuff we're going to cover here is going to get you through a CompTIA exam. Because I'm not covering anything historical. I'm not doing any of the kind of crazy signaling and frequency hopping and all of that stuff. I'm not talking about any of that technology. All we're looking about is the practical aspect of what cellular standard or Wi-Fi standard or some combination thereof is going to work for you in various circumstances. So
Man,
with
I was
that,
all excited. I thought you were going to finally clarify for me orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. Okay.
is not going to happen tonight. If we really want to do that show, we can, but wow, will we have
No,
to
I really
think out
don't.
hard. All right, so let me share my screen and let's look at cellular standards briefly. Oh, and let me
Yeah,
do this,
that's the way to
do
do it.
this
Right,
part.
do
Here
what
we
I do.
go,
You
so
have
I
to
can see
talk
what
your
I'm
way
doing.
through it. Click this, touch that. Ooh.
All right, and of
Oh,
course,
that's lovely.
the template I used didn't do lowercase, so I couldn't just say the G's because then I would have had to put an apostrophe S, and that would have been grammatically incorrect. And so I couldn't go there, Dave. So the G standard's new. Somehow this is supposed to go to the next. There we go. I just said all that stuff. There's my introduction. Hey, how about that? And I said all that stuff too. What do you want to do? Download or upload, right? So live streaming versus streaming music or music. So cellular standards. Let's look briefly at the numbers. And note that these are theoretical maximum numbers, okay? So the big differences between, there are quite a few differences between 4G and 5G, the biggest being speed and throughput. There are other technological issues where 5G is superior in a lot of different ways, and I'll explain that in a bit. Primarily, it's about the number of connections that you have. So with concurrent connections, the more the merrier when you're dealing with 5G. 4G hits a wall much earlier than 5G does. But let's just talk about the numbers. At 4G, the maximum theoretical bandwidth, using 4 antennas and crazy stuff like that, is 150 megabits per second. Upload speed, in theory, 50 megabits per second. Now, here's the kicker, right? The latency, the time it takes between when you click on something and then the internet responds, or the thing responds, the server responds to you to start downloading stuff to your phone or to whatever you're connected via the cellular network, is upwards of 60 milliseconds to almost 100 milliseconds. Now, a millisecond is a thousandth of a second. That doesn't seem like much, but it's a pretty serious lag. We'll get to real world stuff in a minute. The average with 4G is more like 5 to 12 megabits per second download, and upload somewhere in the order of 2 to 5 megabits per second. Latency is still right up there at the top, up to almost 100 milliseconds. So download speed back in the early days of quote unquote broadband internet, we would have been very happy to get 12 megabits per second. That would have been blazing speed, and we would have paid through the nose for it. Nowadays, that's incredibly slow. What are you running at home, Dave?
70 down, because I'm too cheap to buy the only other option, gigabit, and about 5 up.
Okay, so 70 down and 5 up. So there you go. 4G on the upload speed is in theory comparable, right, to your internet connection. Download speed, obviously, you have a much higher bandwidth. So downloading from whatever you're downloading, from YouTube, of course, since we're on that channel right now, your download speeds are fine, and so is 4G. Because a good download speed to be able to stream a typical movie, and I'm jumping ahead, I'll show that slide in a bit, is at least 5 megabits per second. It's kind of to be able to watch and stream a video. So even on 4G, you're in pretty good shape. With 5G, the maximum theoretical download speed is 20 gigabits per second.
That's so awesome.
Right? The difference there is so astonishing and so huge that making the jump from 4G to 5G is awesome. There was a moment There was a moment. I have a iPhone 14, and so I'm looking at the 15 and the 15S, going, "Well, it's been a couple of years since I up." Right, very much a first world problem. I get that. My last, I have a couple of relatives. I grew up in San Diego and California mainly, but I have a few relatives left in Los Angeles. And one of them drove down and we met and hung out on Coronado Island in San Diego, which is absolutely gorgeous, just like the rest of San Diego. And we hung out, and my cousin, Jim, I won't give his last name in case he wants to remain anonymous, but he was my best man at my wedding. So you can look that up too. Anyway, he whips out his phone. And I'm looking at it going, "Jim, what iPhone is that?" And he very proudly looked at me and said, "It's an iPhone 6.
Oh my.
And I said, "A 6? A 6? What? How do you even keep batteries for a 6? And he said, "Well, when they die, I just replace them." And he's like, "Well, what can your phone do that, what do you have?" I said, "A 14. And he said, "What can your phone do that mine can't?" And I said, "Well, it's faster. And it takes better pictures." And he just looked at me. He just looked at me and smiled. It's like, okay, that's pretty much it. It's faster and it takes better pictures. And that's awesome, because then I went and looked at the specs for the iPhone 6 just to think, because I was angry that I couldn't come up with a great answer right away. And so I'm like, okay, there's got to be a reason why I wouldn't want an iPhone. No, iPhone 6 can do all kinds of Wi-Fi standards. They can handle all kinds of download speeds. So yeah, even the old stuff is still okay.
That's impressive.
So let's go back here. If I can figure out where I'm going. That would not be it. Yeah, it is. Okay. Right?
No, you need the F5 vision. Shift F5 will take you, well, you have to go back to the slide you were and then start it from there.
Yep. Well, you'd think I could, but now I can't. Oh, come on.
That's all right.
Yes. Vanity, thy name is Scott.
Technology. If you had an iPhone 6, this would be easy.
Right? Okay, here we go. We can do this now.
So exciting.
I know, right?
Trembling.
Am I sharing properly now, or is it still not?
No, it's the editor. It's the slide editor.
Oh, gosh.
Right click on one of the slides and start slideshow, or there you go.
Okay. All right.
Okay, you're good.
Wow. That was tough. So back to 5G. So 5G is awesome. Real world averages, and I went and looked, is more like 500 megabits per second. That's still incredibly fast, right? So 5G on the average, 500 megabits per second. Upload speed on the average, however, at least in current implementations, is really slow. And if people have different real world experience, the things that I was looking at were topping out at like 18 megabits per second for T-Mobile and Verizon, and AT&T was lagging behind that at an average of 12 megabits per second, which is still plenty fast for most things, but still nowhere near the theoretical maximum of 10 gigabits per second.
Right. And I think that's an issue of throttling and marketing from the phone carriers. They could do that theoretical max. They just...
Well, let's look at some of the limitations to the cellular networks briefly. Okay. The big limitation, and Dave, you ran into this the other day, and I'll let you regale us with that story. But the problem with the cellular networks is that when you have a cell tower where you're getting your signal from, you have a certain amount of hardware in that cell tower. And I'm obviously skipping the gory details of the technological names for this stuff. You have stuff, right, that enables cellular connections on that cell tower. The problem is that box is limited because everybody that connects to that box on that cell tower shares the same bandwidth. So that theoretical 20 megabit or 20 gigabit download speed, 20 gigabit download speed and 10 gigabit upload speed is shared among a whole bunch of users. So tell us about your experience, Dave, with that very same thing.
Right. Well, we talked a little bit about it. We had a failure, an internet failure the other day. And so I did what everybody in my neighborhood did. I set up a 5G hotspot. And it was great for a couple of minutes until everybody realized that they could set one up too. And then when we try to share all that bandwidth, my performance was pretty much equivalent to a 1200 baud dial-up modem.
Wow. And that's a technology of your forefathers. I'm just letting you know the modem that Dave is talking about that hasn't existed in 20 plus years. So anyway, various other things that can stop cellular technology. My cell tower, for example, is about 5 blocks away from my house, but that's 5 blocks of hundreds of trees, of really big houses, of, well, tall houses at least, not necessarily big, but tall. And my bandwidth, even though in theory at 5G I should be getting something amazing, I'll show you that slide in just a second as well. Let's look instead now at Wi-Fi standards because, well, let's just do this. And again, I'm leaving out the old stuff, and we'll start with Wi-Fi 4 briefly. And Wi-Fi 5 is now kind of the standard, although Wi-Fi 4, which is the older technology, is still very much prevalent in many parts of the world. Yeah. So Wi-Fi 4 has its special IEEE standard name called 802.11n, as in Nancy. Theoretical download speeds up to 600 megabits per second. Again, this is with many antennas and all kinds of crazy stuff, and using multiple channels all built together to be able to do this stuff. And it operates on a frequency of 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. And those are 2 separate radios within each Wi-Fi router, essentially.
And I'm going to drop something in here.
Yep.
That's a little CompTIA oriented, and not just CompTIA. There's all kinds of testing stuff out there that people want you to know, speeds and frequencies and things like that. Starting with Wi-Fi 4, everybody stopped asking about speeds with Wi-Fi 4 and 5 and 6, because while there is a theoretical minimum and a theoretical maximum, there's no really useful empirical numbers that they can test you on, because there's so many ifs and ands and ors. So from a real world perspective, what I always think about is Wi-Fi 4, 802.11n, is 150 megabits theoretical max per antenna.
Right.
But
yeah. And the same thing
as far as you can take it.
Yeah. And that applies also to Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E, which is just now coming along. The big difference between these different Wi-Fis as far as just speeds is their theoretical maximums, as you can see from the screen, jump with each generation of Wi-Fi dramatically. The biggest being the amazing jump from Wi-Fi 6 to 6E, where the United States and other countries have opened up the 6 gigahertz bandwidth, the band, to enable connections on that. And Wi-Fi 6E only uses 6E. I'm sorry, only uses 6 gigahertz. Okay.
Did everybody catch that? We have been living for years on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. What is 6E, Scott?
6E uses 6 gigahertz.
6.
All by itself. Now, when I let me throw a caveat in there. I went and looked at Newegg, which if you haven't gone to, newegg.com, that's the best computer retailer on the planet. No, they don't give me a kickback. I just love them. Anyway, on Newegg, almost every 6E router that was listed is called a tri-band router. Guess what that means? That means they have Wi-Fi 6E that runs on the 6 gigahertz band, but they also included Wi-Fi 6 that runs at 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So you get the best of all worlds. And if you have your 6E device connected to your 6E network, then you get the best of all.
Right. Nice.
So limitations. And I just glanced at the time, and I'm
That's
running
all
long.
right. If
Apparently,
we
I'm
have
a
to run
chatty
long,
Cathy
they love it.
this evening. Limitations. We share bandwidth on Wi-Fi networks. There are various interference points. So, for example, the difference in my hotel room at the old hotel from downstairs, which is where the Wi-Fi saturation was, in the conference room and in the dining areas and stuff. That's where their main concentration of Wi-Fi was, but they hadn't really expanded it up into the fourth floor. So early in the evening, when I was trying to stream a video, my computer said, "Talk to the hand." And it wasn't until the next morning when I got up at crack of dawn, because my time zone change was weird. And I apparently was all alone. I had great bandwidth on the fourth floor. And then later that evening, it went to nothing. So there you go. Distance between you and the Wi-Fi hotspot or the Wi-Fi router makes a huge difference on your overall throughput. So the farther the range, the lower the throughput, just because there are plenty of technical reasons why, but we'll just leave it at that. All right, so here's the meat of this whole conversation. Let's see if I can wrap this up in 3 minutes or so. And that is interacting between cellular and Wi-Fi. So, as I mentioned earlier, typical download speeds, if you're downloading a 1080p movie, 5 megabits per second minimum. And you want a little more than that, although with the streaming downloads, most players like YouTube, for example, or Netflix will buffer. And so even at 5 megabits per second, you'll still get a pretty smooth stream, just because a lot of that stuff is not coming in real time. So that's the latency aspect of it.
Okay.
And I threw out the 4K, what you need for that. Does anybody actually have a 4K, download 4K movies on their laptop when they're on the road? I don't. If you do,
I've done
more
that
power
for
to you.
watching later, but not real time.
Yeah.
Because you got to have a 4K screen.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay. Live going up speed, on the other hand, this is a big difference, because upload speeds, as you notice from that slide on Wi-Fi and cellular, the upload speeds are pretty low in comparison. And what I was looking at on Twitch, for example, at 720p at 30 frames per second, it put 3 megabits per second upload as a minimum speed. YouTube upload, like what we're doing right now at 1080p at 60 frames per second, 3 to 6 megabits per second minimum. But other sources that I looked at suggested that you need 10 to 15 megabits per second more than the minimum for a stable upstream. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So most of our networking stuff is not going to fly for doing the upstream stuff via the cellular networks. So then I did some real world testing. My cell phone connected to my home network, which is only 802.11 AC, Wi-Fi 5. Download speed, nearly half a gigabyte.
Wow.
Gigabit per second.
An
and
AC.
Note my at the end, I put my wired fiber connector on there. I pay for a gigabit, but I get half that at my upload and download speed.
No.
It's symmetrical. So, but you see with 802.11 AC that my cell phone was able to run almost as fast as my local machine. But when I switched it off to the fastest network on the cellular, note the speeds here in the middle of the screen. My download speed went from nearly 500 megabits per second to 50. And my upload speed from 387 went to 4 megabits per second. So real world.
Thank you, T-Mobile.
So real world is interesting. One of the things that I ended up doing with in that hotel is I took my cell phone, turned it into a hotspot, right? Running Wi-Fi 5, no, running 5G. See, even I get confused with the terms. Running 5G, stuck it in the window, because that's what you do with your hotspot. You stick it in the window
Right.
so that you minimize the interference from other sources. And then I suddenly was able to connect to the 5G network with my laptop, right, as a hotspot, and so my laptop was using Wi-Fi, connecting to my cell phone, using my cell phone as a hotspot, connected to the 5G cell network, and I could download anything I wanted, and I watched movies happily into the evening just by doing my phone.
That's such a real world practical walk away.
Yeah.
Get rid of the interference things. Get it in the window. Get it on the roof. Whatever. That's awesome. I know we have a mutual friend, Scott, who was he set up in an apartment he was in where he was down in one of the lower floors, and the WAP was someplace in an upper floor.
Yeah.
An aluminum foil homebrew parabolic underneath his local router so that it would be directional and amplify, and it was reflective, and it was so cool.
Awesome.
And he said it made a humongous difference.
Yes. And there are plenty of practical examples of how to enhance your Wi-Fi signals, not so much on your cellular signals, but certainly your Wi-Fi signals.
Yeah. That was awesome, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you for inviting me, and thank you to all your viewers too. So
not
awesome.
at all. They're going to eat this up. We got a couple more moments. We're a hair long, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one other thing, and that is a message that you posted on LinkedIn about 2 weeks ago or so, 10 days ago, something like that, about it's not even a change in position. It's something new you've got going on. And people contacted me almost immediately. What does Scott mean like this? And I said, you have the ability to ask me this. Why don't you ask Scott this? Well, you're so let's I ask you now then. Tell us a little bit about your new venture.
My new venture is called JZ Education. We have a nascent website that's a baby website for those of you who don't like $3 words. Baby website called jz.com. You can go there, but it's basically a picture of me and the other principal owner of the company called Joachim Zwick. He's also my partner in crime in many other venues, but in this case, we're doing technology and doing a company specializing in training videos in not necessarily CompTIA things yet, but certainly in just general Windows topics. We've looked at various other certifications, and we are going to produce videos, training materials, that sort of thing, and put my happy face on screen and hopefully share some information and make the world a better place.
I feel peanut butter coming.
Right? Programming through peanut butter and jelly. There's something that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about that.
This could become your ultimate go-to trademark. No matter what we do, we find a way to get peanut butter and jelly in there as an analogy. Well,
yes,
that's exciting. We all wish you the greatest of success.
Thank you.
Anything I can do, I will.
Absolutely.
Equipment, supplies. You've already got an awesome studio. As far as location goes, and the facilities and the equipment, so no good there. But anything I can do, can and will.
Thank you very much, Dave.
All right. Well, guys, we got Scott Jernigan on. He was the first one, the first official guest that we've had on this show, and I cannot think of anybody more exciting, more interesting, and that you guys are more interested in seeing. I think if there was a toss-up between him and Eben Upton and maybe Greg Kurtzer, it's Scott. So thanks.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
Sure thing. All right, well, let's wind this thing up. Let me see if I can figure out how to wind this up using this technology that we haven't done in so long. Closing. Yeah, all right, let's just wind this thing up here then. I wish you, as ever and always, a great rest of the week. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy, and if at all possible, call or visit your parents. Never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, don't go away yet. Good night. I will see you on ADRAMADA next Thursday on the other platforms that I'm on. Until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. Eep, op, ork, ah. Now, before I vanish here, I just wanted to give you a quick heads up. Other things that are coming up in near future. We got the Windows Sandbox done. Man, that was awesome. I got so much good feedback. I learned so much. Hopefully you did. You know what? These notes are out of date. I wrote these when we were first going to do Scott on the show, and that was about a month and a half ago. So never mind. I don't have anything up for you. Scott, what do you say we give him the old dating game goodbye?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Really? Are we going to do this?
It's been a
Ready?
long time since we've done it.
All right.
So on 3, 1, 2, 3. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And we do have awkward pause.